just because my thumb slipped and I liked a post on social media from my fiance's account, who also happens to be the CEO of our company. I never expected my life to turn into a soap opera. That very evening, Stella, my fiancée, called an emergency meeting. Her reason? I was disrupting the company's culture. She instantly deducted my entire month's salary. And as if that wasn't enough of a slap in the face, she immediately turned around and gifted her new assistant a luxury car worth millions. Everyone in the office looked at me with pitying eyes. They probably expected me to snap, flip a table, and make a massive scene. Instead, I was as chill as a cucumber in a freezer. I calmly packed my belongings from my desk, walked up to her, and slapped my resignation letter right in front of her. Bullying a coworker and only getting a salary deduction? Not dramatic enough for me. I'm voluntarily resigning. The moment the words left my mouth, Felix, the company's resident pick-me boy and green tea extraordinaire, rushed to speak up, hitting his high notes like a tragic opera singer. Arthur, why are you quitting over such a tiny thing? You've been with the company for so long. Besides, CEO Stella usually treats you so well. Quitting at a sensitive time like this, what will people think of her? CEO Stella, please, you have to talk him out of it. Stella probably intended to say something to keep me, but after hearing Felix's Oscar-worthy performance, she flared up. Talk him out of it? Why should I? If he wants to leave, let him leave. My conscience is clear. I don't care what anyone says. She snatched my resignation letter, aggressively signed it, and threw it right back at my face. The colleagues standing around watched me like I was the main event at a circus. But I didn't argue like I used to. I calmly picked up the fallen paper and said I would hand over my work and leave. No need for a handover. If you want to leave, leave right now. Stella pointed toward the door, then coldly added, as if remembering a technicality. Voluntary resignation means no severance pay, by the way. The colleagues who were close to me whispered, advising me to swallow my pride and apologize. Don't act impulsively. They all knew this company was built from the ground up by Stella and me. In the early days, when we were desperate for funding, I literally drank myself into the hospital, throwing up blood just to secure investments. When projects fell behind, I led the team, staying awake for 3 days and 3 nights straight to get it done. I had poured countless hours of blood, sweat, and tears into this place. Leaving now was basically walking away from everything I owned, but my mind was made up. After saying goodbye to everyone, I packed my box and headed for the door. Right before I left, I caught a glimpse of Stella's eyes. There was a complex flash in them. I knew exactly what she was thinking. She thought I was bluffing. In the past, we had fought countless times because of Felix. The worst incident was when Stella humiliated me in front of the whole office and gave my entire annual bonus to Felix. I was so furious I threatened to quit. But eventually I swallowed my pride, came crawling back, spoke softly to her, and went back to work like nothing happened. She thought I would just brainwash myself into staying again this time. But she didn't know that my patience for her had officially reached negative numbers. As soon as I stepped out of the building, my phone buzzed. I opened it to see a massive money transfer from a good friend of mine, Ben. Just this morning, when Stella claimed the company was struggling and needed to cut my pay, my first instinct was to worry about her stress levels. I immediately contacted friends to borrow a huge sum of money, planning to give it to her to help the company. But then, by pure coincidence, I saw Felix's social media post. That was my wake-up call. I finally understood Stella's true intentions. Yet surprisingly, my heart was eerily calm. No heartbreak, no crazy jealousy. Maybe because this exact scenario had played out way too many times. Stella had done so many absurd things for Felix that I honestly couldn't tell if I was her boyfriend or if Felix was. I transferred the money back to Ben, thanked him, and headed to the parking garage to find my 10-year-old beater car. The paint was peeling in several spots. Parked right next to it was a brand new, shiny Porsche, the very same car Stella had just gifted Felix. The garage had plenty of empty spots today, but Felix had deliberately parked right next to my junker. A blatant provocation. Stella and I had been together for 10 years, yet I was worth less than Felix, a guy who had been here for less than 10 months. I let out a self-deprecating laugh, hopped in and slammed the gas pedal, leaving the company I had dedicated my youth to. But as luck would have it, right as I exited the company gates, someone rear-ended me. I stepped out of the car, only to see Stella and Felix stepping out of the Porsche behind me. Arthur, why did you brake so suddenly? I couldn't react in time, Felix said, rushing forward, looking heartbroken at the dented bumper of his new toy. What a shame. This was the car CEO Stella carefully picked out for me. Stella's face instantly darkened like a thunderstorm. Arthur, I saw you glaring at Felix's car in the garage. Be honest, did you do this on purpose? Did you know Felix was behind you and brake-checked us just to get revenge on me? I almost laughed out loud. Unbelievable. Flipping the script and dumping all the blame on me. Felix sighed dramatically. Oh, please, CEO Stella, don't blame Arthur. It's normal for him to be mad at me since he lost his job. At the end of the day, it's my fault. If only I had been a little more careful. He put on a remorseful face and raised his fist to hit his own forehead. But right before his fist made contact, he conveniently slowed down his hand. Yet Stella didn't notice the terrible acting. She lovingly rubbed his forehead, her voice dripping with affection. This has nothing to do with you. Don't blame yourself then. She fiercely pointed a finger at my head. Can you learn a thing or two from Felix? He knows how to be humble. You've been working for years and you're still this childish and arrogant? She pushed me so hard I stumbled. When I regained my balance, I found the whole situation hilarious. For the past year, Felix had constantly stolen credit for my work and used dirty tricks to frame me for his mistakes. And now, he was the humble and responsible one, while I was childish and arrogant? Knowing that talking to a brick wall would be more productive, I didn't bother explaining. I turned around to leave, but Stella blocked my path. I thought she was going to continue defending Felix, but to my surprise, she pulled me aside, her tone suddenly serious. Arthur, I only expect so much from you because my hopes for you are high. Why can't you understand my intentions? Hearing her gentle voice, I was momentarily confused, but I quickly caught on to her game. Stella patted my shoulder. I'll revoke your resignation. Think it over carefully. Go apologize to Felix. As for this crash, you take full responsibility. Whatever the repair costs are, transfer the money to Felix. I snapped back to reality and looked up at Felix. He had probably guessed what Stella was saying. His face was full of smugness, and he even shot me a provocative eye roll. I smirked. I'm not paying a dime for this crash. Whoever is responsible can pay for it themselves. If you have a problem with that, call the cops. I'm leaving. I turned and walked away. Behind me, Stella was practically jumping up and down in anger. I gave you a chance. Don't you dare regret this? Regret? The only thing I regretted was not leaving sooner. I got back into my car and texted my friend Ben. I quit. I can start at your company tomorrow. Less than half a second later, Ben called, his voice a mix of surprise and disbelief. Are you serious? What about Stella? Back in the day, Ben and Stella started their businesses around the same time. While Stella started from scratch, Ben's company had better resources and offered amazing benefits. Ben was always desperate for top-tier technical talent and had promised me shares and massive profits if I joined him. Even knowing my relationship with Stella, he had bent the rules to offer me a part-time position. But because of Stella, I rejected him without a second thought. During my darkest days, when I was lying in the freezing snow, almost freezing to death, it was Stella who dragged me into a police station and saved my life. I was overwhelmingly grateful to her, so I gave up everything to pour my heart into her business, doing whatever it took to make her company grow. But looking back now, she never seemed to appreciate it. Besides, after all these years of slavery, I had more than repaid my debt. I didn't need to suffer this injustice anymore. Don't worry about her. I make my own decisions now, I replied. After chatting with Ben to confirm the contract signing time, I drove home and started packing. Although I bought this house entirely with my own money, it was filled to the brim with memories of Stella. I had no intention of staying here. I started by cleaning out the space under the bed. I found a bunch of scattered sketches, drawings of a girl, sometimes smiling, sometimes lost in thought, peeling an apple or looking in the mirror. It was all Stella. Every expression was vivid and real. I had drawn all of these for her. She used to love my sketches. She treated every single one like a treasure, carefully framing and storing them. But ever since Felix showed up, she started getting impatient. She said drawing was outdated and a waste of time compared to just snapping a photo. She no longer wanted me to draw her, and these drawings? Tossed under the bed, unappreciated. The paper had turned yellow and old, the figures fading away. I let out a bitter laugh, took them into the bathroom, and set them on fire in a metal basin. The flames swallowed everything clean, leaving only a pile of ashes, just like the love between us, burnt to a crisp while we weren't looking. After that, I continued clearing out junk. I didn't have much stuff, but without my things, the room suddenly looked vast and cold. I slumped onto the sofa and took out my phone to look for a rental near Ben's company. But as soon as I opened the app, I saw Felix had posted a picture in the company group chat. It was a selfie of him and Stella. The background was an arcade. Stella was holding a massive pile of stuffed animals, smiling radiantly at the camera. That smile was so bright and genuine, something I hadn't seen directed at me in a very long time. I used to take Stella to the arcade too, but the moment we walked in and exchanged tokens, she would turn around and leave, calling me childish. She said she was too busy every day and didn't have time for such useless things. Yet the things she deemed useless with me, she somehow found plenty of time to do with Felix. I sneered. She didn't hate childish things, she just hated me. In the company chat, quite a few colleagues were sucking up, praising Stella for looking like a fairy descended from heaven. Some even praised Felix's photography skills and jokingly asked if the two of them had good news to share soon. Actually, everyone knew I was Stella's boyfriend, but they dared to joke like this simply because, at the office, Stella never bothered to hide her intimacy with Felix. If this were the old me, I would have furiously called Stella and demanded she set boundaries. But now, I was as zen as a monk. I pretended I didn't see it and went back to my apartment hunting. Who knew that 2 minutes later, when I checked again, several messages in the group had been unsent, and Felix's original photo was deleted. I figured Stella would come home in the middle of the night as usual. But surprisingly, not long after, she walked into the living room, chatting happily on the phone with Felix. Seeing me, a flash of guilt crossed her face, but it was quickly replaced by a dark scowl. She intentionally glared at me, then pushed the bedroom door open and went inside. I knew she was waiting for me to coax her. Every time something unpleasant happened at the office, I would always find a way to apologize and beg for her forgiveness. Even when she was the one in the wrong, I had to bite the bullet and take the blame. I used to think I had to do it, whether to repay my life debt or to save the relationship. But now I just felt nauseous. I kept my head down and continued what I was doing, ignoring her existence entirely. Stella marched out of the bedroom, her face stormy. "Did you see the messages in the group chat?" "What messages?" I asked purposely, not even looking up. I could practically feel her letting out a breath of relief. "Nothing. Just some work messages sent to the wrong group." I found it amusing but was too lazy to expose her. I just wondered how many dirty secrets she and Felix shared that I didn't know about. "Felix's car is fixed. Have you fixed yours yet?" Since I was silent, Stella spoke again. I knew this was her signal, giving me a chance to make up. If it were the old me, I would have thought she was forgiving me and rushed over to kiss up to her, but today I didn't even lift my head. "A piece of junk isn't worth fixing," I replied flatly. Stella frowned. "What do you mean by that?" I looked up at her in surprise, genuinely confused about why she was offended. My car had been scratched multiple times in the past, and whenever I mentioned fixing it, she would give me that exact same line. "A piece of junk isn't worth fixing." I thought she was about to throw a tantrum, but unexpectedly she sighed. "I know you're still mad about what happened at the company, but Felix has been doing a great job lately. Gifting him the car was just to retain talent." Hearing that, I almost choked on my own spit. Felix was hired through Stella's nepotism. His working ability was garbage. The mistakes he made were countless. Minor things, like ordering plain water for the clients during a meeting but getting premium bubble tea for himself. Major things, like sending the base cost spreadsheet to the clients instead of the quotation, causing the company to lose tens of millions. Keeping a dog would be more beneficial than keeping him. If I didn't know the company inside out, I might have actually believed her BS. I stayed quiet. Stella continued, "You are my boyfriend. When we get married, the company will be yours too, right? Why must you be so petty with him, Arthur?" "Everything I do is for the company. I just don't want the employees to think I'm playing favorites." I knew perfectly well that was an excuse. Everyone in the company saw exactly how Stella treated me versus Felix. Projects I stayed up 3 days and nights to finish, she'd hand them over to Felix on a whim, letting him make a simple PowerPoint and claim it as his achievement. Clients I had negotiated with for days and was about to sign, she'd take Felix to a dinner with them under my name, and boom, the contract was suddenly Felix's. Incidents like this were too many to count. Over time, the colleagues didn't just see her favoring Felix, they even assumed she despised me. Because of that, I was looked down upon and bullied by plenty of people in the office. She saw it all but pretended she was blind. I didn't want to explain myself because any explanation would just be labeled and excused by her. "You don't need to explain anything to me," I replied coolly. "I have nothing to do with the company anymore. Do whatever you want." Stella fell silent. Finally she sighed, walked over to me, stood on her tiptoes and wrapped her arms around my neck. Her breath was soft. "Actually, I was being a little selfish too. I wanted you to rest for a while. You can use this time to think about our wedding. When are you planning to propose to me?" she asked with a flirtatious smile. But I had proposed to her multiple times, and she rejected me every single time. Whenever we had a bad fight, she would dangle the marriage carrot in front of me to pacify me. Sometimes I felt less like her boyfriend and more like a dog being led by a leash. I said nothing. Stella scratched my chin like she was playing with a pet. "Don't be mad anymore. Give me a smile, okay?" She then leaned in to kiss me, clearly trying to win me over, but as she got close, I smelled Felix's cologne on her clothes. My stomach churned. I shoved her away, frowned, and grabbed a wet wipe to aggressively clean my hands. Stella stood frozen, looking as if she'd been struck by lightning. "Are you crazy?" "I have things to do tonight. I'm going out to change," I said. I turned and headed for my room. Stella tried to follow me. Without hesitation, I slammed the door in her face and locked it. "Arthur, don't you regret this?" Stella sounded genuinely furious this time. She delivered a nasty threat, kicked the door hard, and stomped away. By the time I came out, the living room was empty. In the company group chat, Stella had posted a message asking if anyone wanted to go out for a late-night meal. The chat was dead silent. The only person who responded was Felix, spamming 3 joyful emojis. I knew she was doing this to piss me off. This had happened many times before. Every time she did this, no other colleague wanted to join the awkwardness. Only Felix eagerly volunteered. If it were the old me, I would have chased after them in a jealous rage, only to be mocked by both of them. But now I couldn't care less. I changed my clothes, went to inspect the apartment I wanted to rent, and finding no issues, transferred the deposit immediately. After that, I contacted a real estate agent. I wanted to sell my current house. Even though I paid for this house entirely out of my own pocket and personally oversaw all the renovations, Stella's name was on the deed. Back then, we had almost nothing. To make her feel secure, I drained my life savings to buy this place for her. Now that the company was huge, she probably didn't even care about this house anymore. The agent told me that to sell the house, Stella needed to be present. If she didn't have time, she had to sign a power of attorney. I had no choice but to message her, but a red exclamation mark popped up next to my text. She had blocked me. Classic Stella. Whenever we had an irreconcilable argument, she would throw a tantrum, block me, and leave the house. Worried for her safety, I used to borrow other people's phones, calling her in a panic, begging her to unblock me. And she would sit on her high horse on the other end, arrogantly asking if I knew what I did wrong. Thinking back on all the soul-crushing lies I told just to pacify her, I honestly lost count. After a moment's thought, I called her directly. Come home for a bit tonight, we need to talk. Talk about what? I'm very busy. Stella's voice was ice cold. I pressed my lips together. Just come home and we'll talk, Stella scoffed. You push me away when you feel like it, and now you want me to come back. So I have to come back. Do I owe you something, Arthur? Is this your idea of an apology? Have I been treating you too well lately, that you've forgotten how to grovel? Ignoring her sarcastic tone, I lowered my voice and apologized, just like old times. I was wrong. I had lied through my teeth so many times before, one more time wouldn't kill me. Especially since this fake apology was the price of getting my house sold. Even though it was my house, if Stella decided to be petty and refused to sign, I wouldn't be able to sell it. Even with proof of payment, it would mean a messy lawsuit. She had the energy for drama. I didn't. Sure enough, after hearing me apologize, her tone softened significantly. Wait for me. She hung up. My mood remained perfectly stable. I posted the house listing online, giving it a decent discount for a quick sale. Once everything was set, I contacted Ben to sign my new employment contract. Ben was absolutely thrilled. He asked me repeatedly if he was dreaming. He even threw a massive welcome dinner for me. I had planned to go home early, but then I realized Stella probably wouldn't be home anytime soon anyway, so I agreed to stay. After a few rounds of drinks, I went to the restroom. On my way back, I heard a familiar voice coming from the private dining room next door. I subconsciously stopped. Through the slightly ajar door, I saw Stella leaning into Felix's embrace. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Stella was laughing so hard her shoulders shook. Taking advantage of the moment, Felix quickly lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. Stella froze for a second, but she didn't push him away. CEO Stella, when are you going to break up with Arthur? I can't wait anymore. I want to be with you properly. Do you know how much it hurts me every day seeing you two together? Do you still love him more than me? Felix whined, acting like the ultimate victim. Stella's lips parted as if to say something. Finally, she hugged him and gently patted his back, coaxing him like a toddler. How could he ever compare to you? It's just that the company is big now. If I dump him to be with you, I'm afraid people will gossip. It would look bad for your reputation. Just wait a little longer, it won't be long now. So that was it. I know you love me the most, Felix beamed. Watching them lean intimately against each other, looking exactly like a couple in love, I just gave a cynical smile, looked away, and went back to my room for a few more drinks. After dinner, everyone reminisced until midnight. When we got to the parking lot, Ben suddenly dragged me in front of a brand new Porsche. Do you like it? He asked. I nodded, confused. I thought it was a new car he just bought for himself. I was about to compliment it when he shoved the keys into my hand. A gift for you, he winked. Your car is a total wreck. I couldn't stand looking at it anymore. Upgraded it for you. I tried to refuse, but knowing what I was about to say, he cut me off. I heard Stella gifted a new car to some rookie at your old place. The guy has trash skills but drives a luxury car. How can you lose to him? By the way, I looked at some of the work that new guy supposedly did. The style changes every single time. It's obviously plagiarized. I have no idea how he hasn't been fired yet. Maybe it was the alcohol, but Ben was speaking without any filter, roasting Felix to a crisp. I stayed quiet. He was right. Those designs were all done by me and the other colleagues. Almost every time a project was near completion, Stella would demand it be handed over to Felix. Naturally, his style was inconsistent. An outsider like Ben could see right through it, yet Stella was utterly blind. I wanted to decline again, but Ben pretended to be mad. This isn't a freebie. I'm deducting it from your future paychecks. Don't waste my good intentions. I laughed out loud. The price of this car, if he deducted it from my salary, it would take years. Knowing it was just his excuse to give me a signing bonus, I didn't refuse anymore. I thanked him, we chatted a bit more, and then we called designated drivers to take us home. I figured Stella wouldn't be home yet, but as soon as I opened the door, there she was, sitting on the living room sofa. Where did you go? Didn't we agree to meet? Do you know how long I've been waiting? She fired off angrily the second I walked in. I was slightly surprised. Usually when she went out with Felix, she wouldn't be back until 3 or 4 a.m. Coming home this early was rare. But looking at her, the image of her making out with Felix at the restaurant flashed in my mind. I felt a wave of disgust. I went out to eat with a friend, I replied flatly, walking into the living room and pulling out the power of attorney for the house sale. I had barely taken 2 steps when Stella suddenly blocked my way, frowning. You drank alcohol? Didn't I tell you that you're not allowed to drink when I'm not around? I couldn't help but sneer. What she actually meant was I was only allowed to drink when I was entertaining her clients. I ignored her. Stella seemed to realize something, and a smug smile suddenly spread across her face. You're still mad that Felix and I went to dinner, aren't you? You don't want me dining alone with him. Just say it. Why drink so much over it? You're overthinking it. My drinking has nothing to do with either of you. I pulled out a chair, sat down, and slid the document toward her. Take a look at this. Seeing the paper, Stella raised an eyebrow, her tone even more arrogant. What's this? A guarantee letter. Let me tell you right now. Apologizing is too late. I am very angry about your attitude this afternoon. Don't think these little cheap tricks will earn my forgiveness. Looking at her inflated ego, I suddenly realized that in the past, when I truly made her angry, or when she decided to play the victim, I actually had written guarantee letters by hand, just to make her happy. Looking back, even when she was the one at fault, I had willingly handed over my self-respect for her to trample on. Fortunately, that would never happen again. It's not a guarantee letter, it's a surprise, I said nonchalantly. Stella raised an eyebrow, curious, and was about to open it. Just then, her phone rang. Seeing the caller ID, her eyes lit up. Hold on, let me take this. She picked up. Hello? CEO Stella, I was driving and accidentally hit someone. What do I do? I'm so scared. Felix's whiny, dramatic voice echoed through the speaker. Panic instantly washed over Stella's face. Send me your location. I'll be right there. She stood up, completely disregarding my existence, and headed for the door. I took 2 quick steps, blocking her, and shoved the document right in her face. Handle my business first. I was talking to you first. Plus, I need this signed urgently. Stella froze, looking up at me with an exasperated sigh. Arthur, can you have a shred of empathy? His situation is an emergency. Your jealous act is really ugly right now. I found it laughable. I was ugly, but Felix drunk driving was fine? I was too exhausted to argue. I just held the paper steady in front of her, refusing to pull it back. Stella didn't say another word. She flipped the document open, but before she could read a single line, Felix screamed through the phone. Why are you hitting me? CEO Stella, save me. Don't panic, I'm coming, Stella yelled, clearly more panicked than he was. She didn't even bother reading the contents. She frantically flipped to the last page, scribbled her signature, and sprinted out the door. Her golden heels clacked frantically against the floor. Watching her desperate retreat, I couldn't help but ask, aren't you going to read what you just signed? What's there to read? The surprise you bring is probably just some minor contract. As long as you checked it, it's fine, she shouted without looking back, disappearing into the night. I just found it hilarious. Back in the day, to impress her, I used to secretly negotiate partnerships without telling her. At first, she was thrilled. But as the company grew, she started looking down on the smaller companies that had supported us in the trenches. Every time I brought a contract, she would scrutinize it 100 times, paranoid about mistakes. Now, just because she was worried about her precious Felix, she had no idea what she had just signed her life away to. But hey, it saved me a lot of trouble. Stella didn't come home that night. Instead, Felix bombarded me with text messages. Arthur, I know you were standing outside the private room and saw everything, right? But you should know Stella's heart leans toward me. Just one call from me, and she rushed over immediately. You should bow out gracefully before this gets embarrassing for you. I couldn't help but laugh. Felix was really showing his true colors now. I knew perfectly well that forwarding these screenshots to Stella would be useless. She spoiled him rotten. Even if she saw his provocations, she would just think I was trying to drive a wedge between them. But I wasn't saintly enough to just ignore his constant yapping. Congratulations. But if one day Stella gets bored of you, remember to bow out gracefully too. I knew it was a weak comeback, but the moment I sent it, Felix went dead silent. I'm sure it pissed him off. I went to bed early. The next morning, I sent the signed power of attorney to the agent. By the afternoon, someone came to view the house. The buyer loved the location, layout, and price, but was suspicious of why I was selling it in such a rush. This is a beautiful house. Why are you selling it so cheap? Is there something wrong with it? He asked cautiously. I gave him the short version. I bought it to live in with my fiancée, but the engagement is off, so it's got to go. He looked sympathetic. I see. Looking at the decor, it clearly has a woman's touch. Selling it is for the best. Saves you from being haunted by memories. I didn't say anything. Stella was incredibly picky about houses. Back then, to find a place she liked, I spent 3 months looking at over 100 properties before settling on this one. Even the interior design catered entirely to her taste. Only now did I realize that for years my entire life had revolved around her. The buyer was decisive. After seeing the house, he signed the contract that evening. We agreed to hand over the keys in 2 days. Perfect timing. I was moving out in 2 days anyway. When I got home after signing, I saw a pair of men's dress shoes in the entryway. My usual slippers were missing. I already guessed what was going on. I grabbed a pair of disposable slippers and walked in. As soon as I entered, I heard Felix's voice. CEO Stella, that's not how you do it. Let me teach you. Walking toward the kitchen, I saw them standing by the sink. Felix had his arms wrapped around Stella from behind, holding her hands. It was an incredibly intimate pose. Felix was wearing my pajamas, wearing my slippers, acting like he owned the place. Stella was wearing her matching pajama set, completely unbothered by his closeness. The two were chatting and laughing freely. Funny. In the past, if I stood even slightly close to her, she would pull away, claiming she wasn't used to physical contact with the opposite sex. Looks like the only person she wasn't used to was me. I let out a dry laugh. For some reason, Stella turned her head and saw me. She jumped, hastily untangling herself from Felix's arms, looking slightly guilty. Why are you home so early? She asked. I found that hilarious. So now my being home was my fault. Arthur? I was just teaching CEO Stella how to wash vegetables. Don't misunderstand, Felix said, though his eyes were glaring at me triumphantly, practically begging me to have a jealous meltdown. If it were the old me, I would have exploded, screamed at Stella, and demanded she kick Felix out of my house. But I was used to this. Besides, I was moving out soon, the house was sold, and the deposit was in my bank account. I couldn't care less. You two carry on. I'm going to my room, I said calmly, walking toward the bedroom. Felix froze, a look of sheer confusion in his eyes. He clearly didn't understand my reaction. Stella, who had probably braced herself for my wrath, sounded unnatural when she saw how calm I was. For the first time ever, she offered an explanation. Today is Felix's birthday. He wanted to celebrate with us, so I brought him home. Normally, she wouldn't have said a word, just glared at me and told me to get out if I didn't like it. I laughed inwardly. I didn't care anymore, yet now she felt the need to explain. She couldn't even remember my birthday, but she had the mood to throw a party for Felix. Have fun, you two, I said flatly, and walked into my room. My packing was mostly done. Anything I didn't use daily had already been moved to the new apartment. All that was left in the room were some clothes and books. I was debating whether to just finish moving today when the door suddenly swung open. Felix walked in, holding a small slice of cake. He glanced around the room, smirking. This room is a lot emptier than the last time I was here. Looks like you're being a good boy and preparing to bow out. I ignored him, keeping my head down to text Ben about the move. Feeling ignored, Felix's face darkened and he took a few steps toward me. I'm talking to you, are you deaf? I am, I replied coldly. Why do you care so much? It's not like you're going to live here anyway. It was a simple sentence, but it must have hit a nerve. Felix's face contorted with rage. He raised his hand, aiming to grab me by the collar. Before I could react, footsteps echoed from the doorway. Suddenly, Felix threw the cake onto the floor, let out a dramatic scream, and threw himself backward onto the ground. Felix, what happened? Stella pushed the door open, shoved me aside, and rushed to help him up. I stumbled back a few steps. A shard of broken porcelain from the cake plate pierced straight through my slipper and into my heel. Bright red blood immediately started seeping out. But Stella didn't seem to notice. She was busy agonizing over a microscopic scratch on Felix's hand, which wasn't even bleeding. I'm sorry, CEO Stella. It's my fault. I made Arthur mad again, Felix whimpered, his eyes red as he looked at her. He looked so bewildered and innocent. If I wasn't the victim here, I might have actually believed his performance. I just wanted everyone to eat my birthday cake together, so I brought him a slice. I didn't know he hated cake. I never said I hated cake. In fact, because I rarely got to eat it, I loved it. Every birthday I used to remind Stella. She would laugh at me, saying few guys like cake as much as I did. But with Felix around, she conveniently forgot all about my preferences. She pointed a finger at my face, furious. If you don't want it, say so. Why smash the plate and push him? Arthur, I thought you had changed. Turns out you're exactly the same as before. Apologize to Felix right now. If you don't, I wouldn't dare marry a crazy, jealous husband like you anyway. Let's just break up. She glared at me fiercely, trying to assert dominance. It made me laugh. I remembered the conversation I overheard outside the private room. In the past, during our worst fights, she would always use breaking up as a threat, and I was always the one who couldn't bear it, the first to soften, even begging her on my knees. I thought breaking up wasn't what she truly wanted. It was just her ultimate weapon, a chance she was giving me. But I had finally woken up. She probably wanted to break up all along, which was why she kept bringing it up. Well, good. Because I wanted to break up too. Even if she hadn't said it, I would have. Seeing my silence, Stella thought I was scared. Her tone softened slightly. I saw you sneaking around these past few days. You're secretly preparing for our wedding, aren't you? I know you don't want to break up. Now apologize to Felix. Before she could finish her delusional speech, I cut her off. No need. I agree to break up. The smug smile on Stella's face froze. Her eyes widened in absolute disbelief. What did you just say? Didn't you want to break up? I agree, I said calmly. I thought agreeing to break up would play right into her hands. She should be thrilled. But strangely, I didn't sense an ounce of joy in her voice, only shock and rage. Arthur, are you insane? You want to break up over such a tiny thing, she screamed, glaring daggers at me. I didn't get it. Wasn't this what she wanted? I was agreeing with her. Why the attitude? Even Felix looked confused. He gently tugged at her sleeve. CEO Stella, Arthur is the one asking for a breakup. Why don't you just grant him his wish? Before he could finish, Stella snapped at him furiously. Shut up! Does our relationship have anything to do with you? This was probably the first time she had ever spoken harshly to him. Felix was so startled, his jaw dropped, completely speechless. Stella seemed to realize what she did. She quickly softened her voice and apologized. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Go wait outside for a bit. I don't want to drag you into our mess. Felix's eyes were red, clearly unwilling, but he was smart enough to know when to retreat. He obediently left the room. After he left, Stella sighed, about to say something, but her eyes suddenly darted to the floor. Her tone softened completely. Your foot is hurt. Why didn't you say anything? Let me get you a Band-Aid. She walked over to the bookshelf nearby. But I knew this was just her classic tactic to change the subject. Whenever we touched on a topic she didn't want to hear, she would pivot to caring about me to interrupt. In the past, I would always melt, drowning in the illusion that she still cared, and the old argument would be forgotten. But the core issue was never resolved. It just rotted inside me, until it was dug up again, uglier than before. Where are the Band-Aids? I remember they used to be here, she muttered, rummaging through the shelf. She had forgotten that the last time she was in my room was 2 years ago. I had a 104-degree fever, and she had gone on a date with Felix under the excuse of going out to buy me medicine. I had moved the first aid kit ages ago. Why is there so little stuff in your room? Stella finally noticed the glaring abnormality. I'm not hiding it, I said. I sold the house, I found a buyer. Handing over the keys in 2 days, you should find someone to pack your stuff and leave. Stella froze, ready to explode, but then something clicked in her brain and she sneered. Stop joking. My name is on the deed too. How could you sell it without my signature? All right, Arthur, I know you're mad. I'll tell Felix to leave right now. Just stop throwing this tantrum, okay? She still didn't believe me. I picked up the sales contract from the desk and handed it to her. The last page is your power of attorney. The agent said this was enough. The power of attorney was from the night Felix got arrested for drunk driving. You signed it, remember? If you don't, it doesn't matter. It's legally binding. Stella took the contract. When she flipped to the last page, her body suddenly went rigid. Half a second later, she shrieked like a maniac. Who gave you permission to sell the house without asking me? I laughed coldly. I didn't take a single dime from the company, but I bought this house entirely with my own money. It's perfectly reasonable for me to make the decision. Besides, I remember you bought a house in the suburbs for Felix. It's not like you're homeless. You can move there. Logically and legally, there's nothing wrong with me selling this house. Stella was speechless, her face pale. I expected her to ride the wave and formalize the breakup, but to my shock she desperately tried to calm herself down and explained in a low voice. That house, I meant to give it to you, not Felix. I only put his name on it, so he'd feel a sense of belonging. If it bothers you, I'll take his name off tomorrow, okay? We've been together for so many years, we can't just break up like this, Arthur. I know you're just angry right now. Calm down. We'll talk about this tomorrow. With that, she turned and practically fled the room. It was the same old routine. Whenever an argument reached a point of no return, she would put on a front of still being in love, telling me to calm down, and every time I would gaslight myself into believing her, thinking I was being too impulsive, and take the initiative to apologize and reset the cycle. In the beginning, I truly loved her. Later on, I knew her heart didn't belong to me anymore, but I couldn't let go of the emotional investment. For years, I believed that if I just yielded and survived this one conflict, things would get better. But time proved nothing got better. It was all my own delusion. She probably thought I would still be the same puppet dancing in the palm of her hand, but she was wrong. This relationship had been ground to dust by 1,000 disappointments. After Stella left, I cleaned up the broken porcelain, bandaged my foot, and went out. Stella and Felix were gone. Leftovers sat on the table and half a candle lay discarded on the floor. Cleaning the house had always been my job. I never wanted Stella to lift a finger, and over time, she just got used to it. I was too lazy to clean it now, figuring I had to hire a deep cleaning service before handing over the keys anyway. I showered and went to sleep. But the next morning, when I walked out of my room, I found the house spotless. Stella was standing in the kitchen, bustling around wearing an apron. I was just about to wake you up, she smiled at me, looking perfectly serene as if yesterday never happened. I cleaned the house and even disinfected it. If it were the old me, I would have pretended not to notice the dirty mop water smeared across the floor, or the streaky windows, and showered her with praise just to make her feel accomplished. But today, I gave a dry laugh and muttered an Seeing my cold reaction, Stella looked a bit disappointed but quickly recovered her smile and brought out 2 plates of breakfast. I made this myself, try it! I glanced down. 2 cheese sandwiches. They looked decent enough. Honestly, this was the first time in 10 years Stella had ever made breakfast for me. I should have been moved, except she forgot one tiny detail. I am deathly allergic to cheese. Stella's expression shifted slightly. Let me make something else. Don't waste your time doing useless things, I said. A peaceful breakup is best for both of us. At the company's New Year's party, she remembered perfectly that Felix didn't eat lamb, ginger, or garlic. But she conveniently forgot the time I accidentally ate cheese and ended up hospitalized with a severe allergic reaction. Whether she loved me or not couldn't be more obvious. Stella didn't seem to think so. She frowned, annoyed. Couples shouldn't hold grudges overnight, Arthur. I lowered my pride to do all this for you. Why are you still being so picky? I'm busy with the company every day. It's normal to forget a small detail. Yeah, I nodded. So it's normal for us to break up too, Stella finally snapped. She slammed the tray down onto the table with a deafening crash, glared at me as if she had run out of patience, and stormed out. And so began our Cold War. I sighed helplessly, called the cleaners, and packed all of Stella's remaining belongings, shipping them to her house in the suburbs. In the past, whenever she went on a business trip, I packed her luggage, so this didn't take much time. The house was handed over right on schedule. Stella finally seemed to realize that this breakup wasn't an empty threat. She texted me a barrage of insults. When I didn't respond, she escalated by constantly posting pictures with Felix on her social media. During this time, I was busy settling into Ben's company. By the time I noticed, my phone was flooded with notifications because I had her set as a favorite contact. Today, she posted a picture of her and Felix at a wildlife park. Tomorrow, it was a hot air balloon ride. The day after, she bragged about the company doing so well that she took Felix to Bali as a reward. In one photo, she deliberately flaunted a couple's ring on her middle finger. I knew she was doing this to provoke me. She was waiting for me to get jealous, throw a fit, and beg her to take me back. Then she would arrogantly hand down a list of conditions like she was doing me a favor, but I truly did not care. I was about to close the app, but my finger slipped and I accidentally liked one of her posts. Not wanting any unnecessary drama, I immediately unliked it, calmly removed her from my favorites list, and went back to work. Thanks to my input, the projects at Ben's company were improving rapidly. The sales team gained confidence and successfully negotiated a billion-dollar contract. That day, Ben and I were getting ready to meet the client to finalize the deal when Stella suddenly texted me a photo. Curious, I opened it. It was a pregnancy ultrasound report with the name Stella on it. "How does it feel?" she texted immediately after. Before I could reply, she sent another. "Just kidding. The report is fake, but ask yourself, when you saw this, were you really not jealous? Can you really accept me carrying another man's child?" I found it hilarious. I hadn't noticed it before, but now that she mentioned it, I realized something. In the past, seeing her with another guy would make my blood boil, my face flush, and my heart race. But now, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My face was completely neutral, not a single ripple of emotion. Even my smartwatch showed my heart rate was perfectly stable. The fact that Stella belonged to someone else was something I had completely thoroughly accepted. I thought about ignoring her, but remembering Felix's constant provocations, I didn't want any more headaches. "You have a new boyfriend now," I texted back. "Stop joking about crossing boundaries like this. It'll give your new boyfriend the wrong idea." A few minutes later, Stella's chat showed typing. It flashed on and off for a few minutes. Finally, she replied, "Keep pretending. I want to see how long you can keep this act up. If you didn't love me anymore, why would you care? Don't think I didn't see you secretly liking my post." I actually laughed. Stella never used to pay attention to these tiny details, and neither did I. Seems like her time with Felix had truly changed her. 9 years with me and she never changed a bit, but for Felix she was a whole new person. Before I could reply, she sent another message. "Felix and I haven't done anything lately. He's just playing along with me to help us get back together. For his sake, I'll give you one last chance." I sneered. "Don't need it." I immediately blocked her number. She probably still thought I was going to crack and come running back. But that was fine. Over time, she would realize I was dead serious about this breakup. I also knew her desperate attempts to hold on weren't out of love. She was terrified that if news of our breakup got out, people would talk. Being overly friendly with Felix was one thing, but officially dumping me for him was a PR nightmare. I ignored her completely and focused on my career. That night, Ben and I successfully signed the contract. Ben was ecstatic. However, at the celebration dinner, while meeting several big bosses in the industry, Ben introduced me as his partner. They treated me with immense respect, which warmed my heart. When I attended industry dinners with Stella, she always introduced me like I was a clueless junior employee, never as a partner. Over time, the other bosses stopped respecting me, even ordering me around to run petty errands. I didn't blame her entirely. She was wrong, but wasn't I the one who allowed it? After 3 rounds of drinks, I was hitting it off with the other CEOs. Suddenly, one CEO pulled me aside and asked discreetly, "Arthur, did you offend someone? I just saw you were put on our industry blacklist. We thought it was a mistake." I didn't believe him. He showed me the list on his phone. It was an internal industry database, designed to warn companies about risky hires, people with bad records or criminal histories, and right there, staring back at me, was my name and photo. The reason? Insubordination. Inability to cooperate with colleagues, extremely jealous and toxic personality. I didn't even need to guess who wrote that. Seeing my silence, the CEO patted my shoulder heartily. "Brother, I know you're not that kind of person. Someone's definitely playing dirty. Don't worry, I'll delete your name right now." And just like that, he erased my profile from the blacklist. I thanked him, but my heart felt a bitter sting. I was lucky I had Ben's help. If I were just a regular job seeker, having my name on this list would have ruined my entire future. The blacklist wasn't inherently evil. It protected businesses, but no HR department ever bothered to verify its claims. They just relied on prejudice. An innocent person would face failure after failure, eventually losing the courage to keep trying. Seeing we were still chatting, Ben, heavily buzzed, threw his arms around us and dragged us back to the table for more drinks. After the dinner, Ben and I walked the guests to their cars. Ben stepped aside to call his girlfriend, leaving me standing at the hotel entrance waiting for my designated driver. Not long after, a voice spoke up behind me. "Oh, Arthur? What are you doing here?" I turned around to see Felix and Stella standing a short distance away. Felix had his arm around Stella's waist. They stood intimately close, looking like two people madly in love. Seeing me, Felix smirked. He leaned down and whispered to Stella, "CEO Stella, I bet Arthur came looking for you. Why don't you guys talk? I'll give you some space." He made a show of stepping away, but I could see right through him. He had zero intention of leaving. Sure enough, Stella pulled him back, leaning her body against his chest, totally flaunting their intimacy. "You're not an outsider. There's nothing to hide." Then she shot me a smug look. "Didn't you say you didn't need a chance? What are you doing here then? Let me tell you, it's too late. Arthur, you're out of chances." Her arrogant attitude was vastly different from the fragile, dependent persona she put on when she was with Felix. I knew she had misunderstood, so I replied flatly, "I was having dinner with a friend. I'm waiting for a ride home." Felix laughed out loud. "Sorry, Arthur, I couldn't hold it in. But I really didn't expect you to be splurging on fancy hotels like this when you're unemployed. Dining with a friend?" I caught the heavy sarcasm in his voice. He thought I was lying to save face. "Arthur, I didn't think you'd sink this low." Stella looked at me, her eyes filled with disdain. I didn't bother explaining because it wouldn't matter anyway. They wouldn't believe me. Seeing my silence, Stella assumed she caught me in a lie, confirming Felix's theory. She let out a heavy sigh. "Actually, I wasn't going to forgive you, but we used to be in love. I'm not completely heartless. Plus, since you dragged yourself all the way here, I'll give you one more chance. Perform well." She raised an eyebrow and glanced at Felix. Felix, clearly hearing this plan for the first time, panicked slightly but didn't dare object too loudly. He stammered, "CEO Stella, you should think about this. Getting back with an ex is never a good idea." I almost laughed. Clearly these two hadn't synchronized their scripts. Stella didn't hear what Felix muttered. She coldly looked at me. "Hear that, Arthur? Lately, a lot of my friends have been telling me to cut my losses. They say you're not worthy of me anymore. Do you know how many people told me to dump you back then? It's only because of our years together that I forgave you over and over. I honestly don't know what kind of drugs you're on, or who brainwashed you into initiating this breakup. Everyone knows how lucky you are, but you just don't know how to appreciate it." Stella rambled on and on. Yes, her net worth had far surpassed mine, which was why she constantly emphasized the imbalance in our relationship. She made it clear she was only with me out of nostalgia and pity. In the past, I brushed these comments off as passing anger. Only later did I realize she meant every word. In her eyes, the only things holding us together were benefits, history, and her charity. Absolutely zero love. I was about to respond when Ben's voice rang out. "Arthur, who are these two?" Seeing Ben approach, I breathed a sigh of relief. Just some former colleagues I bumped into. In the past, whenever Stella took me out, she refused to introduce me as her boyfriend, claiming I was just a colleague. I thought she'd be thrilled with this introduction. Surprisingly, her face darkened even more. I ignored it and introduced Ben. "This is my friend. Like I said, I was here having dinner with him." For some reason, Stella looked even more furious. Felix beat her to the punch, smiling smugly. "Didn't expect you to actually have a friend to invite you here, Arthur. He looks well off. What does he do? Where does he work?" Ben frowned and whispered to me, "What's wrong with this guy? He sounds brain damaged." I chuckled. "It's fine. You get used to it." I chuckled. "It's fine. You get used to it." Ben didn't push it, but he clearly sensed Felix's hostility. He replied casually, "I just run a small business, nothing impressive." Hearing that, Felix looked even more triumphant. He gave Ben a look of utter contempt. "Business is tough these days. Must be exhausting. You shouldn't waste your hard-earned blood and sweet money on expensive dinners like this." Ben caught the sarcasm immediately but didn't retaliate directly. He leaned in and whispered to me, "What's the deal here? Do you have beef with this clown?" I didn't hide it. The woman next to him is my ex-girlfriend, and his current sugar mommy. Ben knew that Stella and I had started our company together, and when I joined his firm I didn't hide the breakup or the reasons behind it. He let out a loud, mocking laugh and turned to Felix. "Ah, hearing you talk. So you don't earn your money with blood and sweat. What exactly do you do? With that vibe of yours, you're not a kept man living off a woman, are you?" Felix's face flushed with rage. He lunged forward as if to throw a punch but was stopped by Stella. "Stop messing around," Stella snapped, then turned to me. "Arthur, I don't have time to play games with you. I know exactly what you're holding out for. I promise if you agree to come back, I'll restore your position at the company, and I'll give you 10% of the shares. Are you satisfied now? 10%? Before I could even process the audacity, Ben burst out laughing. "Sorry, but I already poached him for my company, and I gave him 40%. Stella's face went black, but as if remembering something, she glared at me coldly. "Arthur, think carefully. Different companies have different values. A random percentage at a no-name company means nothing." She was implying that Ben's company was light years behind hers. In the beginning, Ben's company was smaller, but their core strength was in technology. Now that their tech was fully realized, and having just secured a billion-dollar contract, Ben's company had officially surpassed Stella's. Plus, given Stella's current management style and her blind favoritism toward Felix, I highly doubted her company would survive much longer anyway. But I was too lazy to explain. She wouldn't listen anyway. Ben didn't bother arguing with her either. He turned to me. "Is the driver here yet? Let me check the app." Just then a man in a designated driver uniform jogged up. "Hello, bosses. I'm your driver. Where's the car? My car's a bit flashy." "Try not to scratch it," Ben said, nodding his chin at me. Without a second thought, I tossed the keys over. Less than 2 minutes later, the driver carefully pulled up the brand new Porsche and parked it right in front of me. "Boss, this car is sick. Must have cost a fortune," the driver marveled. I turned my head and looked at Felix. His eyes were glued to the Porsche, practically glowing with envy. Stella stared in stunned silence, her expression unreadable but clearly displeased. Ben shot me a cheeky grin. "It wasn't that expensive, just a little over 2 million. It was a company bonus." Then he looked at the driver. "Hey, I actually need a full-time driver. I like your vibe. Want the job?" Salary is 20 grand a month. The driver looked like he'd won the lottery. Really? You're not messing with me? I'll send you the contract right now. I promise I'll do a great job, boss. While Ben and the driver chatted excitedly, Stella shot me a freezing glare, turned on her heel and marched away. Felix hurriedly chased after her. Once they were gone, Ben finalized the deal with the driver. I looked at him, surprised. Are you actually hiring him? Of course. That was the plan, Ben replied smoothly. You're our lead tech guy now. Networking and drinking are unavoidable. We can't just keep calling random drivers forever. What if something happens? But isn't that salary way above market rate? I asked. In Stella's company, my salary was only 15 grand. Ben slapped my shoulder. Not at all. When you're blackout drunk, your driver literally holds your life in his hands. It's worth it. I didn't argue further. Over the next period, we threw ourselves entirely into the new project. During my downtime, I realized Stella, who had been posting non-stop, had gone completely radio silent. Even Felix had stopped sending his petty provocative texts. I guess running into Ben was a massive reality check for them. I thought Stella had finally given up and cut ties for good, but I was wrong. One day, while we were busy wrapping up the project, Ben pulled me aside with a mysterious look. Stella just called me. Before I could ask why, he looked dead serious. She's probably going to contact you soon. Whatever you decide, I support you. Don't feel pressured. But I really hope you don't waver. Leaving me with those cryptic words, he walked away. I was confused but didn't dwell on it, diving back into work. By noon, my phone rang. It was Stella. When I picked up, there was no aggressive yelling. Instead, she was uncharacteristically silent. It was so quiet, I thought the call had dropped, but the screen showed we were still connected. Arthur, let's stop this nonsense. Can we please make up? Her voice sounded hoarse when she finally spoke half a minute later. I found it laughable. Even now, she still thought I was the one throwing a tantrum. I said nothing, she continued. I just called your friend. He told me that back then, he wanted you to co-found his company, but you stubbornly chose me. I never realized how much you sacrificed for me. I admit, ever since Felix joined the company, I neglected you. But we've been together for 10 years. We were talking about marriage. Are we really going to throw it all away over these past 10 months? Her voice choked up as if she couldn't speak further. I paused, memories of the last 10 years flashing through my mind. It had been ordinary, but we had always leaned on each other. When things got hard, we encouraged each other. We walked through the thorns together. I remembered the time I drank 3 bottles of hard liquor to secure a deal, stumbling out of the restaurant. Before I blacked out, I saw Stella crying, holding me up with one arm while desperately dialing 911 with the other. When I woke up in the hospital, looking at her thin, exhausted frame, I couldn't imagine how she managed to carry my dead weight until the ambulance arrived. Back then, she probably truly loved me. I was about to say something when Felix's voice suddenly crackled through the speaker. Arthur, please forgive CEO Stella. I'm sorry if I caused any misunderstandings these past few days. I swear I didn't mean anything by it. If it bothers you, I'll resign tomorrow. I'll never appear in front of you again. This time Stella didn't silence him. She tacitly allowed it. My emotions instantly curdled into something ugly. The way they phrased it made it sound like their epic romance was being tragically torn apart by a cruel twist of fate, and I was the evil third wheel forcing them to separate. So what if he resigned? If he left now, Felix would forever be the white moonlight, the one that got away. In Stella's mind, their sacrificial love would only grow more beautiful over time, eventually erupting into something far worse than what it was now. I let out a cynical laugh. Fine, I can agree. But on one condition. What condition? Stella's voice sounded like a martyr ready to chop off her own arm. Transfer 50% of the company's shares to me, and split all the assets currently under your name in half. I knew perfectly well Stella would never agree. She knew that her wealth and status were the only reasons Felix was sticking around. Sure enough, the line went dead silent for nearly 5 minutes. Finally, Felix couldn't hold back his outrage. Arthur, this demand is outrageous. CEO Stella is a woman who dragged this company to the top through blood, sweat, and tears. Do you have any idea how hard she worked? And you open your mouth to demand half the company? As a man, aren't you ashamed? I didn't even bother tearing down his hypocritical mask. I simply replied to Stella, we are all adults here. You should know you can't have your cake and eat it too. You want everything to go smoothly, but you refuse to sacrifice anything? Since when did you get to monopolize all the good things in the world? Think about it. You have 3 days. I hung up. I thought Stella would give up entirely, but that night she called back. 50% is too much. Can we do 20? I was blunt. Half is half, not a fraction less. If you can't do it, don't call me again. This whole situation struck me as odd. Stella seemed genuinely terrified of breaking up. But why? She was the one who had practically begged for it. At the hotel, she claimed she was afraid of gossip. But I had initiated the breakup. That excuse wasn't enough to justify this level of desperation. I didn't think too deeply about it. 3 days passed and Stella didn't reach out. Our project entered its final stages. On the day of the successful launch, Ben threw a massive celebration party. Everyone let loose, forgetting the grueling weeks of overtime. By the time I got home, it was past midnight. I took a shower and was half asleep when my phone rang. Annoyed at being woken up, I tried to decline the call, but my drunk, blurry eyes accidentally hit accept. Hello? Are you Miss Stella's boyfriend? Miss Stella is blackout drunk here and refuses to leave. We found your number in her phone. Could you come pick her up? We're worried something might happen to her. I sobered up instantly. Sorry, please call someone else, but she insists only you can come. She said if anything happens to her, you'll be the first one held legally responsible. I actually laughed out loud and sat up in bed. All right, send me the location. The person on the other end sounded relieved, hung up, and texted me a GPS pin. I took one look at it and immediately called the police, explaining the situation and giving them the address. Then I put my phone on silent and went back to sleep. When I woke up, I saw over a dozen missed calls from Stella and dozens of texts. They ranged from shock that I had called the cops on her, to furious insults calling me a cold-blooded monster who only cared about money and had no heart. Eventually she broke down, asking why I was treating her this way. She claimed she had only made a minor mistake that anyone could make and hadn't actually cheated on me, so why was I being so ruthless? Before I could finish reading the texts, she called again. I was going to ignore it, but I figured if I didn't set the record straight, she would just keep harassing me. I picked up. Her voice was hoarse and thick with emotion. Arthur, I've thought it through. I admit it, you win. I can't live without you. I'll give you 50% of the shares. We'll split the assets in half. Come back. I raised an eyebrow and checked the date. Sorry, the 3 days are up. I changed my mind. Arthur, you! Stella started, but then broke into a violent coughing fit. When she finally caught her breath, her voice was raspy. How did you become like this? I smiled but said nothing. She used to do the exact same thing to me. She would use the excuse of missing a deadline to dock my bonuses and pay me less than Felix. Now, I was simply returning the favor using her own playbook. Funny how people only realize it hurts when the knife is in their own flesh. She seemed to understand what I meant, and also realized that the money was never my goal. She let out a self-deprecating laugh. Arthur, I barely recognize you anymore. She coughed violently again, gasping for air. It sounded painful. I almost asked if she was okay, but I stopped myself. Showing concern would only give her false hope. I stayed quiet. As if reading my mind, she muttered. I have a fever, Arthur. I'm at our house right now. I bought it back a little while ago. I just wanted to know, back when you had that 104-degree fever and I wasn't there, did you feel exactly like I do right now? I didn't answer, she continued. The drawings you made for me are gone. I looked everywhere. Did you pack them away? Or did you throw them out? She rambled on like a child, her voice trembling and full of grievance. Through the phone, I heard the rustling of her rummaging through things. I sighed. I burned them all. Stella stopped moving. She let out a sharp laugh, but it abruptly cut off, replaced by heavy choked sobs. This house used to be filled with memories of us, but now I can't find a single trace of the life we shared. How could you be so cruel? Selling the house just like that? Cleaning it out so thoroughly? You left without a trace. What am I supposed to do now? I took Felix's name off the suburban house. I wanted to make it up to you. Why won't you give me a chance to fix my mistakes? Her crying grew louder, her voice completely hoarse. If it were the old me, my heart would have shattered hearing her cry. But now my mind was crystal clear. She hadn't suddenly realized her mistakes. She was just sick, physically weak, and emotionally fragile. If we actually got back together, she would absolutely repeat the exact same cycle. Stop trying. Tell Felix to take you to the hospital. I have to go to work. I'm hanging up. Without giving her a chance to reply, I ended the call. Once I decided to let go, I meant it. Whether she lived a good life or a miserable one had absolutely nothing to do with me anymore. I washed up and drove to the office. As soon as I walked in, I noticed a buzzing, ecstatic atmosphere. Before I could ask, Ben grabbed my arm, his face glowing. Our project went live, 2 hours in, and it hit 80 million views. The client is thrilled. They decided to sign a long-term, exclusive contract with us. This client was a titan in the industry. Securing a long-term contract with them was the holy grail. Ben instantly issued bonuses to the entire team. Morale was through the roof. Using my bonus and the money from selling the old house, I bought a new place in the city. This time, I chose entirely based on my own preferences. It was a bit far from the center, but right next to a massive lake. The view from the window was breathtaking. I drafted the interior design plans myself, just like I had for the old house. Back then, Stella didn't trust outside designers, and I was the only one who understood her complex tastes. I actually took a 2-month interior design course just to draft a blueprint that met her insane standards. She loved it. That was probably why she bought the house back. Not out of nostalgia, but simply because it was tailor-made for her comfort. Well, I designed this new place for my comfort. I handed the blueprints to a trusted contractor and occasionally dropped by after work to help out. After a few days of heavy lifting, I was exhausted. I tripped on the stairs and sprained my ankle. I took a few days off from the site, letting Ben oversee the construction, but I was too excited to stay away completely. One evening, I limped into the parking lot of the construction site. Standing next to my car was a familiar figure. It was Stella. She was wearing a trench coat and a face mask. She looked haggard, with faint, dark circles under her eyes. I paused for a second before walking over. What are you doing here? I wasn't surprised she found me. Her network was extensive. Tracking me down wasn't hard. She just never bothered to exert that effort when we were together. I have something to tell you, she said. Her voice was still slightly raspy, like she hadn't fully recovered from her fever. Get in the car and say it, I said. I heard you bought a new house. I wanted to help you inspect the construction. No need. Just say what you came to say right here. I rejected her offer outright. She seemed to expect it. She didn't lose her temper. A flicker of sadness crossed her eyes. She handed me a thick folder. This is your compensation. I admit, over the past 10 years, I owed you a lot. Whether for the company or for us, you sacrificed so much and I never repaid you. Take this contract. Consider it back pay for your decade of service. From now on, I won't bother you anymore. I froze, then slowly took the folder. Inside was a meticulous log of every time she had unfairly penalized me at work, every time she had stolen my credit or bonuses, multiplied by 2. There was even a guilt tax for wasting 10 years of my life. Attached was a bank card. The pin written on it was my birthday. I instinctively looked at her face, trying to gauge if this was a new manipulation tactic, or if she was truly letting go. When I say I won't bother you anymore, I mean it, she said flatly, reading my mind. Good. I nodded, accepting the folder and the card. This money rightfully belonged to me. More importantly, I knew that accepting it was the only way Stella would truly accept that we were finished. Sure enough, when I took it, a flash of relief crossed her eyes, though it was heavily tinged with sorrow. So, can I see your new house now? You know, after losing you, my life hasn't been great. I just want to see how well you're living without me. I knew it was just an excuse, a lingering obsession, but I knew her personality. If she set her mind to something, she wouldn't leave until she got it. I didn't want to drag this out. Plus, this was likely the last time we would ever see each other. A clean break was best. Let's go, I said, walking toward the car. But after 2 steps, Stella hurried over and gently grabbed my arm, leading me to the passenger side. I'll drive, your foot is hurt. I didn't object, but I was slightly surprised she even knew about my injury. If it were the old me, I would have been overjoyed. But now it was just too little, too late. Appreciation after the fact is completely worthless. I opened the passenger door. Hanging from the rearview mirror was a little stuffed doll. Stuck to it was a post-it note. When I'm not around, this doll will keep CEO Stella company, followed by a cheeky emoji. It was signed Felix. Stella had clearly forgotten it was there. Seeing the doll, she looked incredibly awkward. It's fine. I'll sit in the back. I went to close the door, but Stella quickly reached in, aggressively ripped the doll off the mirror, and threw it into the back seat. The sheer violence of the action surprised me. Felix was always dropping these subtle territorial hints. He would leave his hair ties on her wrist, put decorations with his name on her desk, and leave his stuff scattered around our old house. It was his pathetic way of trying to make me jealous and forcing me to quit. At first, I didn't get his strategy and fought with Stella over it. I even threw his junk in the trash once. Stella had slapped me across the face for it. Arthur, are you crazy? He's young, a bit childish, but he means well. I just want him to feel secure working here. Why are you so insanely jealous? You look so pathetic right now. That slap broke me. But it also helped me understand Felix's endgame. You didn't have to do that, I said calmly. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. Even if he was sitting in the car right now, I wouldn't care. Stella bit her lip. I know you don't believe me, and I know what you're thinking. But let me be clear. Even though we broke up, I am not with Felix. I told you, I have no romantic feelings for him. Looking at him just reminded me of how you used to be. Lonely, with no one to rely on. That's why I helped him. I laughed coldly. I might have believed that self-righteous speech once, but she conveniently forgot that while she was tilting her umbrella of kindness over Felix, she left me standing out in the rain, just as lonely and unsupported as the boy she claimed to pity. There's no point talking about this anymore. Let's go. Stella gripped the steering wheel. I was actually planning to fire Felix. Before she could finish her sentence, a loud clatter echoed from behind the car. A metal thermos hit the pavement. CEO Stella? I thought you were sick? Why are you here? A devastated voice cried out. I turned around. Standing a few feet away was Felix, his face a perfect mask of shock and heartbreak. At his feet lay the dented thermos, kanji splattered all over the concrete. He looked absolutely pathetic. Whether it was genuine or a performance, I couldn't tell. I raised an eyebrow and looked at Stella. She looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Panic seized her features for a split second before she forced herself to calm down. I found it highly amusing. Her little speech about not being with him was clearly one-sided. Why are you here? Stella asked, her voice tight. Felix put on his best kicked puppy face. You've been so sick these past 2 days. I was so worried. I cooked this kanji to bring to you, but when I got to your place, I saw you driving away. I was terrified something happened, so I followed you. But I guess you don't need me anymore. He squatted down, pitifully scooping up the spilled kanji like he had just suffered the ultimate betrayal. Stella looked extremely uncomfortable. She opened her mouth to say something, but Felix cut her off. CEO Stella, I understand. I always hoped you and Arthur would get back together. It's only right that you treat him well. I'm just being naive. You two carry on. I'll clean this up and leave. He purposely glanced at the stuffed doll discarded in the back seat, then lowered his head to continue scraping kanji off the floor. Seeing him act so understanding, Stella clearly struggled internally. She took half a step toward him, then stopped. You go back first. I'll have someone clean it up later. No. Felix shook his head tragically. CEO Stella, you don't need to worry about me. I'm not a kid who needs your protection anymore. I took care of you while you were sick. I know how to clean. At the mention of him taking care of her, Stella looked visibly guilty. She quickly averted her eyes. Get in the car, she told me. She opened the door, but I didn't get in. I can drive myself, I said. You go take care of him. We've broken up. You don't need to put on a show for me. Hearing that, I clearly saw a spark of sheer triumph flash in Felix's eyes, but his voice remained the picture of innocence. Why did you guys break up, Arthur? Are you still mad at me? Did I come at a bad time? This has nothing to do with you, Stella snapped at him, then turned to me. We broke up peacefully. I told you I'd take you to see the house, and I'm a woman of my word. The second the words left her mouth, Felix suddenly groaned, clutched his chest, and collapsed onto the pavement. Felix, what's wrong? The color drained from Stella's face. Without a second of hesitation, she sprinted over and gathered him in her arms, her eyes wide with terror. Felix lay pale and limp against the concrete, groaning softly. Stella panicked. She practically hoisted him up and dragged him toward the back seat of her car, but halfway there she remembered I was standing right next to her. She froze, looking at me with pure conflict in her eyes. I knew exactly what she was thinking. Human life is more important, I said flatly. Take him to the hospital. Stella bit her lip, making her choice. Wait for me at your new house. I'll come find you as soon as I drop him at the ER. With that, she shoved Felix into the car, jumped into the driver's seat, and sped off like a maniac. Watching the car disappear, my heart remained completely still. Did Stella realize Felix was faking it? I didn't know. But I did know one thing. It wasn't my problem anymore. I was about to drive to my new house when Ben called. Apparently, our new project had exploded overseas. Several international companies wanted to negotiate partnerships immediately. Ben needed me to fly out with him on an emergency business trip. I didn't hesitate. I turned the car around and headed straight for the airport. The schedule was grueling. As soon as we landed, we threw ourselves into preparing pitches. To ensure flawless communication, we created translated versions of everything and double-checked every single data point. We worked so hard we barely slept 4 hours a night. Sometimes I felt like I was sleepwalking, but the hard work paid off. After a massive presentation, the foreign investors were blown away by our preparation and tech. They agreed to partner with us. Ben and I hugged each other, screaming like idiots. That night, we finally got a full night's sleep. Having been so busy I hadn't checked my personal messages in days, I finally opened my phone to find a mountain of text and missed calls from Stella. They were all sent on the day I flew out. She had gone to my new house, waited, and demanded to know why I wasn't there. I hadn't expected her to actually show up. In the past, whenever Felix had a crisis, she would throw herself into it completely, forgetting my existence entirely. I thought about it for a second, then closed the app without replying. It had been days. She probably didn't care anymore anyway. Besides, we were over. Talking to her was a waste of breath. Ben and I spent a day touring the city to celebrate, then flew back home. By the time I reached my apartment, it was midnight. I had just collapsed onto my bed when a violent pounding echoed from my front door. It sounded like someone trying to kick the door down in a rage. Thinking it was an angry neighbor or a loan shark, I marched to the door and yanked it open. Before I could see who it was, a figure lunged at me. I stumbled backward from the impact. A sickening wave of alcohol washed over me, mixed with a familiar perfume. It was Stella. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked, exasperated. "Didn't we agree we have nothing to do with each other?" Stella hiccuped loudly. "Nothing to do with each other? Ha! Felix and I are officially together now. Are you happy?" She stared at me with glazed, drunken eyes, desperately searching my face for a flicker of panic, jealousy, or literally any emotion. I gave her absolutely nothing. The fact that she and Felix were together was the most predictable plot twist of the century. I couldn't care less about her love life. "So why are you here? Dead drunk in the middle of the night? Does your new boyfriend know you're here? Let me call him to come pick you up. I don't need this drama." I pulled out my phone to call Felix, but Stella completely lost it. She lunged, slapped the phone out of my hand, and sent it crashing into the hallway wall. The screen shattered with a loud crack. "Do you really feel nothing?" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "Do you know I waited outside your house all night, and you stood me up? You ghosted me and flew out of the country." She pointed a trembling finger at me, swaying on her feet. "Arthur, you are a liar. I regret ever being with you. If I knew you were this cold-blooded, I would have dumped you years ago." I was worried her shrieking would wake the neighbors, but I also knew shutting the door in her face would just make her scream louder. Fortunately, Felix came sprinting down the hallway. He glared at me, then immediately switched to his victim persona, grabbing Stella's arm. "Stella, you're drunk. Let me take you home, okay?" Seeing Felix, Stella seemed to regain a tiny shred of sanity. She stared deeply into my eyes one last time, then allowed Felix to half carry her away. After that night, I rarely heard anything about Stella. Felix occasionally posted sickly sweet photos of them together, but he usually deleted them within minutes. Eventually, his social media went dead silent. According to Ben, Stella's company was falling apart. Without my technical leadership and with her increasingly erratic management, the company was bleeding money. Felix, drunk on power, bullied the staff until half the senior team quit. Stella tried to salvage it, but it was too late. Several of my old engineers reached out to Ben and me begging for jobs. We gladly took them in. From them I heard the juicy gossip. Apparently Stella and Felix fought constantly now. Sometimes they even screamed at each other in the middle of the office. In the beginning, Felix would back down and apologize, but as things got worse, he started slamming tables and fighting back. One time, Felix completely botched a major client deliverable, costing the company tens of millions. Stella snapped and fired him on the spot, but bizarrely, they still lived together, and their relationship grew even more toxic. I even heard they ended up in the ER once after a physical altercation. My former colleagues sighed in relief. "Thank God you cut your losses when you did, Arthur. Stella is a totally different person now, and that company is a sinking ship. If you hadn't left, who knows how deep you'd be dragged into that mess." I stayed quiet. Stella ending up like this was exactly what I had predicted. She built her success, and she orchestrated her own ruin. She chose the wrong path, and instead of turning back, she slammed on the gas. Meanwhile, Ben's company was soaring. The international project was a massive hit, leading to even more contracts. In just 3 months, we hit our annual revenue target. Ben and I started discussing aggressive expansion. We usually saw eye to eye, but this time we clashed over a few key details. We argued for days, sometimes even yelling at each other in the conference room. But unlike Stella, Ben actually listened. When I had disagreements with Stella, she would stonewall me, insisting her way was the only way, right or wrong. If I didn't yield, the project stalled. Ben, on the other hand, heard my counterpoints. Our arguments were constructive, refining our strategies and making us a better team. One night, after a particularly grueling debate with Ben, I dragged myself home. The new apartment was finally fully furnished and ready to live in. I filled the bathtub, sank into the hot water, and closed my eyes, trying to solve the remaining logistics for our expansion. My phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped my hand and checked the screen. My eyebrows shot up. Stella. It had been almost 6 months since I last saw her being dragged away by Felix. We had bumped into each other briefly at a few industry events, exchanging stiff nods before walking away. Every time I could feel Felix glaring daggers into the back of my head. I understood a current boyfriend's hostility toward an ex, but I honestly couldn't understand why he was still so insecure when she was completely his. Wondering what she could possibly want, I answered the call. "Arthur, my water pipe burst. Can you come over and fix it?" Her voice sounded raspy, like she had just been crying. "Call Felix, or call a plumber," I replied dryly. It was a bizarre request. In the past, if a light bulb flickered, I would drop everything and rush home to fix it. But we were exes now. Calling me to play handyman was absurd. Stella went silent for a few seconds. "Felix and I broke up a few days ago. I fired him. We don't talk anymore." I was slightly surprised, but I pressed, "Why are you sounding like that? And what about the plumber?" "I called one, but it's too late." No one is answering. Her voice cracked, plunging into despair. "Arthur, I know you don't want to see me, but I have no other choice. It's the middle of the night. I have no one else to call. I'm completely out of options." Through the phone, I heard the howling of fierce wind. A chill ran down my spine as a sudden realization hit me. "Where exactly are you right now?" I demanded. Stella paused. "On the roof." My blood ran cold. I instantly flashed back to the early days of our startup. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy due to a massive error. Stella had a complete mental breakdown. In the middle of the night, driven by despair, she left a farewell letter and stepped dangerously close to the edge. If I hadn't woken up and grabbed her, the consequences would have been unthinkable. I thought she had grown stronger since then. I didn't expect her to try something this stupid again. If I didn't know, I wouldn't care. But now that I knew her life might be in danger, I couldn't just hang up. I sighed heavily. "Wait for me." I threw on my clothes and drove straight to our old apartment complex. I pushed the door open to find Stella standing there, her eyes swollen and red. The pipe in the kitchen had burst and water was flooding the floor. I rolled up my sleeves and waded in. A quick inspection showed it was just a loose joint, a few twists with a wrench, and it was fixed. "It didn't leak down to the neighbors," I said, wiping my hands. "Just mop up the water and you're fine." I stood up, ready to leave immediately. But after 2 steps, a pair of arms wrapped tightly around my waist from behind. Stella buried her face in my back, sobbing violently. "Arthur, you still love me, don't you? If you didn't, you wouldn't have come. I'm so sorry, I was wrong about everything. Please, I know I messed up. Can we just go back to the way things were? Please?" I sighed, reached down and peeled her hands off me one by one. "You misunderstood. I don't run a charity. The plumbing fee is $100. Venmo or Cash App." Stella stared at me, her lips trembling in disbelief. Half a minute later, she numbly picked up her phone and transferred $10,000 to my account. "That's too much," I said. I transferred the excess back to her and showed her the screen. "Done. Now we don't owe each other anything." "Don't owe each other anything," she muttered, repeating my words with a broken, bitter smile. I didn't look back. I walked out of the building. On the drive home, I saw a stray cat by the road. I used the $100 to buy a bunch of sausages from a convenience store, left them for the cat, and went home. I thought that was the end of it. I thought Stella had finally given up. I was wrong. A month later, right as Ben's and my massive international project officially launched, I was hit with a lawsuit from Stella's company. The charge? Stealing corporate trade secrets. The evidence was shockingly comprehensive. Along with fake bank transfers, there was a video of me in Stella's apartment on the night I fixed the pipe. The video was heavily edited. It showed me rummaging through drawers in her study, where I was actually just looking for a wrench. The audio was cut to make it seem like Stella caught me stealing sensitive documents. The video was leaked online and went insanely viral. Because our new project was making headlines, competitors who hated us fanned the flames. Netizens, unaware of the truth, saw that I had jumped ship from Stella's company to a rival firm right before launching a highly similar, but far superior product. They bought the narrative hook, line, and sinker. The internet erupted in outrage, demanding a boycott of our company. I was summoned to the police station for questioning. When I saw Stella, the plaintiff, sitting across from me, she couldn't even look me in the eye. Suddenly, everything clicked. "You and Felix never broke up, did you?" I asked quietly. She flinched. "The person who actually stole your trade secrets and nearly bankrupted your company was Felix. You lured me to your apartment with that fake plumbing emergency just to set me up as his scapegoat, didn't you?" I laid out my deduction flawlessly. Looking back, there were so many red flags at her apartment that night. Men's slippers by the door, cigarette ash in the bathroom sink, green velvet curtains, Stella's most hated color, hanging in the living room. At the time, I just thought her tastes had changed because she was living with him. Now I realized Felix had never left. Stella bit her lip hard. "I didn't want to do this, but Felix is still young. He has his whole life ahead of him. I couldn't let one mistake ruin his future." "And what about me?" I let out a cold, sharp laugh. "I spent 9 years of my life with you, I bled for you, and you're perfectly fine with ruining my future. Stella, have you completely forgotten how I dragged you out of the mud?" She visibly shuddered, her body shrinking into her chair. I knew she remembered. She came from a poor rural village. Her family was ruthlessly patriarchal. If she made the slightest mistake, her parents beat her. She fought tooth and nail to get into college, only for her family to try and drag her back to the village, to marry her off to some local thug for a dowry. I drained my entire life savings to pay off her family, buying her freedom. The moment she was free, she collapsed into my arms, sobbing, swearing that we would rely on each other for the rest of our lives. I didn't care that she fell out of love with me. She had the right to love someone else. I didn't even blame her for that. But I could never accept that, after everything I sacrificed to save her, she would willingly throw me under the bus to save the very man who destroyed her. I looked at her, searching for one last shred of humanity. Instead, her red lips parted and she delivered the final blow. "Consider it my sin against you." With that, she stood up and walked away without looking back. Watching her retreating figure, the very last drop of nostalgia I held for her vanished into thin air. What she didn't know was, the person about to be dragged down to hell wasn't me, it was her. A week later, the trial began. Because of the intense media scrutiny and our company's high profile, the court proceedings were live-streamed to millions. Stella's lawyer aggressively presented the fabricated evidence, painting me as a greedy, vindictive ex who stole secrets for revenge and profit. Stella sat silently at the plaintiff's table, her head bowed. In the gallery sat Felix. He was staring at me with that same smug, victorious smirk, absolutely convinced he had gotten away with it. But when Ben and our legal team began presenting our evidence, the smirks vanished. Ben didn't just debunk the video. He played an audio recording. It was a crystal-clear recording of Stella and Felix conspiring in her living room. The entire courtroom listened as Felix's whiny voice echoed through the speakers. "CEO Stella, I'm still young. Besides, you're carrying my child. Do you really want our baby to be born without a father? I know I messed up. I shouldn't have sold the tech. You can beat me, you can curse me, you can even kill me. But please don't let me go to jail." Then came the sound of a sharp slap. Based on his track record, Felix probably grabbed Stella's hand and slapped himself with it. His signature guilt trip maneuver. The entire courtroom gasped. The truth was out. Felix had sold the company's core tech for cash, triggering a massive breach of contract that doomed Stella's business. And Stella had actively framed me to cover it up. In the gallery, Felix's face drained of all color. He leaped out of his seat, screaming like a lunatic. "Fake! It's fake! That recording is AI generated. They fabricated it." He tried to rush the barrier, but bailiffs instantly tackled him. "This is the last time I will ever help you." Stella's voice rang out, cold, detached, and echoing through the stunned courtroom. The live-stream chat, which had been crucifying me minutes earlier, exploded into a frenzy of rage directed at Stella and Felix. Felix had a total mental breakdown. His eyes bloodshot, he thrashed against the bailiffs, screaming that he was going to kill Stella. Stella stood up and slowly walked toward where Felix was being restrained. The bailiffs, seeing her calm demeanor, didn't stop her, assuming she wanted to speak to him. Felix stopped thrashing, thinking she had come up with a new lie to save him. "Stella, quick, tell them it's fake! Tell them you made it up to test me," he hissed desperately. "Be logical, like you used to be. You already dumped Arthur, don't let him win." Before he could finish his sentence, Stella raised her hand and slapped him across the face with all her strength. "The recording is real," she announced to the court, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "I confess. I conspired to frame Arthur to protect Felix." The live stream briefly crashed from the sheer volume of comments. Felix snapped. Screaming like an animal, he broke free of the bailiff's grip and lunged at Stella's throat. But before anyone could react, Stella let out a terrifying broken laugh. "So this is it," she whispered, looking at me. Her smile sent a violent chill down my spine. A sudden terrifying shift occurred. I saw something flash in her hand. Before I or the bailiffs could shout a warning, she spun around with horrifying speed. Felix, who had been screaming a second ago, was abruptly cut off. He collapsed to the floor, the fight completely draining from him as chaos erupted. The bailiffs froze in absolute shock. Driven by a final destructive impulse, Stella's strength gave out, and she collapsed violently to the floor beside him. She collapsed to the floor, her eyes locking onto mine one last time, her pale lips curved into a final, tragic smile as if saying, "This is the last time I help you, Arthur." Chaos erupted. Screams echoed through the courtroom as people scrambled to call ambulances. Both of them were rushed to the hospital. Felix didn't make it. Stella was left in a critical condition and ultimately survived, though she suffered devastating and irreversible physical consequences. Upon waking up, she was immediately handcuffed to her hospital bed, charged with premeditated murder, and ultimately sentenced to life in prison. After the tides of public opinion completely reversed in our favor, Ben considered acquiring the remains of Stella's ruined company, but after talking it over, we dropped the idea. He agreed with me. It felt like grave robbing. We continued to expand our empire, crushing our goals one by one. But the strangest thing happened a few months later. Stella's lawyer contacted me. He informed me that Stella had drafted a legally binding will and transferred 100% of her remaining shares and personal assets entirely to me. After some thought, I accepted it. I formally changed the name of her old company to my last name. We restructured it entirely, turning it into an affordable auditing and advocacy firm for employees. Our main mission? Investigating and clearing the names of workers who had been unjustly placed on industry blacklists. I wanted to ensure that ordinary people, wrongfully accused, wouldn't have their lives destroyed the way mine almost was. Standing in the penthouse office of the towering building that once represented my darkest days, I looked down at the sprawling city. The storm was finally over. From here on out it was smooth sailing.